I am thrilled to welcome multimedia artist Zackary Drucker to the virtual Berman Museum of Art as part of our celebration of Ursinus College Pride. Zackary Drucker is an artist, cultural producer, and trans woman who breaks down the ways we think about gender, sexuality, and seeing. She's performed and exhibited her work internationally in museums, galleries, and film festivals, including the Whitney Biennial, MoMA PS1, the Hammer Museum, Art Gallery of Ontario, MCA San Diego, and SF MoMA, among others. Drucker is an Emmy-nominated producer of the docu-series This Is Me, as well as producer on Golden Globe and Emmy-winning Transparent. Some of you may have been at Zackary's Artist Talk on campus in 2015, and I am so pleased to welcome you back.
Hey Deborah, thank you so much for having me. I'm
Thank you for
thrilled
taking the time to talk to us.
oh my God, it's my honor, truly.
I wanted to talk to you during this sort of unprecedented moment in our experience in any case.
Yeah,
I
I'd say.
remember recently reading a post you did on Instagram on Trans Day of Visibility on March 31st in the midst of this time of social distancing. And similarly, Ursinus College is marking Pride, which is a time where communities come together at a moment where we're forced apart and when people may be feeling isolated. And
Yeah.
it strikes me that at a time like this, that art and expression can serve as an especially potent cultural companion. And I wonder how you respond to that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that art is the truly magical thing that humans are capable of creating, that art is magic, and that the most noble thing we as humans can do is to record our experience of life. And without that, history wouldn't exist. Without that, we wouldn't understand previous, you know, prehistoric civilizations. Um, in moments like this, we are really forced to dive deep within. There is nothing to distract us. Um, well, there's the rabbit hole of your computer and your phone. And I've certainly seen a lot of people just diving in so deep to that kind of collective experience. But I do think that being present in our physical worlds is crucial for us to sit with ourselves and to know ourselves more deeply. Um, is a necessity for survival. Um, and that if we can create art within these constraints, if we can work with limitation and um, have something to show for it in the end. I started making work before social media as an artist, showing my work in galleries and museums and um, community spaces. And I'm so thankful that I have all of those documents, that kind of uh, record of my existence through the years. And I think a lot of that is sort of lost to like the instantaneous nature of social media, where it's kind of fleeting, really. People see it and you get that initial dopamine hit of validation, of being seen, which feels good, absolutely. I think that without that right now, we would really be lost. But I encourage young people, especially, to be present and to write and to read and to use this as an opportunity to dream and to imagine a new world on the other side of this.
Am I remembering correctly that the photographic series Relationship that you did in collaboration with Reese Ernst was done before social media. And I
Yeah.
wonder if looking back
Mm.
on that from the perspective of today, how that are are you cognizant of how you may have thought differently, seen differently, visualized yourself differently at a pre-social media moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's something that is really precious to those images, the fact that they are photographs, the fact that you can't find them easily. Um, the ways that images circulate, uh, I think, should be reimagined. But I also think that um, doing things for your own good and for yourself and not necessarily for the immediate attention that you get by putting it out there, that there's something to say about that. One of my favorite artists, photographers, is Samuel Fosso, who uh, I believe lived in the Republic of Congo and Cameroon and kind of in Central Africa. And when I think of his book, there's a kind of canonical book of his work. There was a civil war happening, and it was a period of 5 years in which he didn't leave his house. And situated in the middle of this book of his work is this period where it's clear that he's photographing himself. They're all self-portraits, and that he's in this lockdown of not being able to leave. And I've been thinking about that a lot, how poignant those photographs are, um, in the middle of his other portrait works of primarily like African portraiture of, families. And he drew a lot from Western fashion photography. And then you have this really sparse period, and really in like the middle of his career, where all he could do was photograph himself in his house. So I've been thinking about that a lot. I mean, I've been thinking about the creative obstructions of needing to stay in your home, you know? And I think for any artists, like, uh, it is a limitless expanse of possibility, except for these kind of unique historical and cultural circumstances where you have to work with what's available. And now is one of those really kind of, um, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a creative challenge.
And I think about how historically it was often these moments of some type of austerity um, or necessity that often push artists into new DIY territories, and that those are oftentimes when real innovations are made, when we're sort of forced to confront ourselves where we are and with what surrounds us, and that can be a really unique creative challenge, and that really wonderful things can come of it.
Yeah, I think that so much of industry and so much of culture is business as usual, and that it takes these kinds of radical schisms for us to break open and envision new ways of being. And certainly my opinion has always been that artists will have an expanded role in the future, that we won't be siloed to these kind of specialized spaces and spheres of high art or fine art, but that we will actually be building the future, that our ability to solve problems creatively and to think around obstacles and um, to experiment will be valuable in all sectors of society. artists are also adaptable and pliable. Um, and that kind of flexibility of being able to flow, of being nimble, of moving with the times instead of being resistant to change. Because what is brittle breaks and change is inevitable. So to resist it is just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Despite the fact that I may be stuck indoors, the world goes on, and the flowers are blooming, and spring is coming, and the days are getting warmer and longer. And I sort of feel like I'm always aware of that promise, but I'm sort of differently aware of it now. And I
Mm.
think it's because I have the time to appreciate it. And I'm also, it feels richer to me.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it is. And I feel attuned to my surroundings in a totally new way. Also, I think just wherever you are right now, attuned to your neighbors, attuned to the weather, attuned to the people that you're closest to, that you're in most regular contact with. Um, and, I really think that the kind of constant noise of the world we're in has disabled our presence. Like it's more
Mhm.
and more difficult to be present. And we've been stopped in our tracks and uh, kind of mandated to tune in to the things that are deeper. There's a lot of, I think, pressing concerns that we've put off to survive advanced capitalism, that we've um, kind of looked the other way to just maintain our survival in this system that is just relentless and um, so accelerated the pace, and that system has been stopped.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is that our students are, particularly those that are seniors and are graduating, um, were looking forward for 4 years to having a senior exhibition, to having a commencement ceremony, to a certain kind of launch. And
Mhm.
I wonder what you would say to those people that are about to launch, without those kinds of customary, or with customary milestone markers that look different.
Yeah, I feel for those kids. I really do. I had a solo exhibition open at the Baltimore Museum of Art last month well, it was in March, and the opening was canceled. I couldn't go. It's new work that's never been shown before. So I was, gearing up for this exhibition for months and was so excited. And I think the only way through that kind of disappointment is gratitude, is having gratitude for the experience itself, having gratitude for the knowledge that you've acquired over these 4 years that nobody will ever take away from you. Um, that's a gift that will continue to feed you for the rest of your life. And it's not about the graduation, it's not about the exhibition. All of those kind of milestones, you're going to continue to have milestones. And life will never be what you expect it to be. It's never going to be what you thought it was. It's always going to surprise you, which is sometimes really disheartening, but is also equally uh, a delightful surprise. Change is the only guarantee. And um, I think, welcome aboard. Ultimately, it's like, life will just throw you curveballs. over and over again, and um, it builds resilience. Like these things, these disappointments, um, when things kind of implode and you're not expecting it, it's, jarring at first, and then it just becomes a part of your story and informs your character. And um, I think that we also try to maximize pleasure and avoid pain in life. And I think that's sort of what capitalism is predicated on. It's just like this constant consumption that will lead to fulfillment, that will lead to pleasure, but you're never supposed to really be satisfied, or else you would stop consuming. And this is a moment that's like, I mean, that's kind of outside of capitalism. It's like there is nothing to consume right now. So we have to just be comfortable and, have gratitude for what we do have. You know, it's not optimal to be stuck at home and to not be able to leave, but as long as our basic needs of survival are provided for, we're much better off than, the majority of humans through time forever. Like we live incredible, um, these incredible existences. Our lives are gifts. Um, and even if this, in the worst case scenario, takes years, um, we will survive. The sun will continue to come up. The weather will continue to change. Um, and, the world will be here with or without us. So may as well be with us.
Yeah. I'm curious about this new body of work that you were exhibiting in Baltimore. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, some of the work has been shown. It's photographs of a friend and mentor of mine, Rosalind Blumenstein. There's work online at Aperture magazine. Um, so that work has been shown, but we included new photographs from that body of work along with self-portraits. And yeah, 5 years of self-portraits. So work that's been made uh, after the relationship series that no one has seen, that no one had seen, and then photographs of my friend Rosalind, who's really kind of an elder. I would never say that to her. She's a legend in the community, and uh, was a visible activist in the 80s and the 90s in New York, survived the streets of Times Square as a throwaway youth. She was, kicked out of her house as a teenager for being trans, and led this really unprecedented life. Um, so yeah, photographs of the two of us and the kind of dialogue between
Mm.
our generations.
I saw the Aperture portfolio of that work with the text by Susan Stryker, and
Yeah.
I would be really curious in seeing this kind of generational dialogue, which has played out in some of the episodes of This Is Me in really beautiful ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's like there's so many in every conversation, in every interaction we have, a there's a lesson. There's kind of like there's like a secret code, I think. Like if you're really paying attention. Um, and especially with folks that are older than you, it's like those survival strategies are so necessary. and especially in moments like this, to really just ask a lot of questions to the people who have more life experience than you to find out, like, how do you survive life? Like, it is really difficult sometimes, and it doesn't get easier. It does in some ways, but it changes over and over again. And um, the obstructions are, they get bigger over time. They become more significant over this span of your whole life, you know? Um, so I find a lot of strength in those relationships. I always have.
Do you think you'll have the opportunity to view that exhibition with her?
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, they have extended the exhibition. Um, we'll see what happens. I'm not, and it's funny, like, I was not going to cry over spilled milk. Like, I didn't have a moment of grieving that. And I think maybe that's practice, and also recognizing that you may as well just save yourself the feelings if you can. Like, if there's really nothing you can do about it, if it
Mhm.
is a global pandemic and there's like, you can have all the feelings you want, but you might just wear yourself out, and it's not going to affect the outcome. And I think in those moments when you're like, I could scream and cry and be so upset about this, but it's not going to impact anything. Um, you just kind of move on. Yeah. So I don't know. I would love to see the work. I do. Yeah, I was disappointed, but I also didn't uh let it get me down. And like I said, I think that gratitude is always the way out. Whenever I feel self-pitying or um, you know, disappointed, I just kind of redirect my attention to the abundance around me, and the love that I have from my friends and the people around me.
I think that's a wonderful takeaway from this whole experience.
Yeah, we will always have each other, no matter what changes in the world, and even in the most dire, destitute circumstances. Human kindness and generosity, um, they always succeed. I mean, they always persist.
Well, that sounds like a good place for us to end. That's very optimistic, and I like that. Is there anything else you would like to say before we conclude?
I was listening, I'm a total news junkie. So this has been challenging because I consume a lot. I mean, I listen to podcasts and I read the newspapers mostly. And even the epidemiologists and scientists who have the grimmest predictions also point to the horizon and to um, a future that uh, looks different, really, maybe than it would have without COVID, but where there's a whole new spectrum of possibility. And the folks who are able to both dream and pair that with action are the ones who really shape culture and shape the world. So right now we're given this time and space to let our imaginations go wild. And I think um, angling oneself towards the light and towards uh, the endless possibility of what we could be without the structures that have held us down, um, is a great way to spend your time.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your working from home schedule
Thank
to
you.
talk to the virtual Berman Museum of Art online.
It's really my pleasure. Thank you so much for thinking of this and for having me. This is actually I think this is the only thing I've done also. I've been totally in my work hole.
Well, thank you for emerging for us.
Yeah. Thank you for pulling me out.